Hey guys, it's June 2nd, and I wanted to finish up that video of Mike from May 23rd, a Thursday night, after he and Tanya came back from their 2-week tour of Europe. Considering this group thinks they're on Earth, they're put together as a corporation to go out and win the world, Mike has never done that. He's never gone out to start anything. He doesn't understand. Clearly, as you'll see here, not only what doors he could have opened for himself or someone else to go into Barcelona, Spain, or Italy, or Greece, or somewhere, but when you have an attitude as he portrays here, he doesn't get it.
We were over there somewhere on this crying tour. Some of them were sorry as dirt.
Crying tour. Sorry as dirt. I don't know how dirt is sorry. It's very needful, actually.
One lady, she had to be a Nazi.
Crying tour. Sorry as dirt. One lady, she had to be a Nazi.
One thing, she looked like she was still left over from the first group of Nazis. She had a bad attitude. She was mean to people.
Sounds like you.
Everybody on the whole tour was reporting her. But anyway.
Yeah, I remember that one time in the Bible where Jesus and the disciples were out touring some ancient ruins. He hadn't had a vacation in a while, and the stress and everything of coming into church service all the time and people not laughing at your jokes or saying amen or looking too sleepy, not putting enough money in the offering. Jesus had building taxes to pay, right? Didn't he? $32,000 on one building? It takes its toll, so Jesus thought maybe if they took a little vacation, take the edge off. And the tour guide was awful. Couldn't see past it. He couldn't look into her heart or past the facade and say, wow, this person must just not have some love in their life. Let's talk to her about some love. Let's lay some love on her. Guys, come on, let's go. No, instead he reported her, left a bad review on Yelp, and just moved on. And then he came back to his home base, and all the people who haven't even had a vacation in like forever heard him griping about this situation. They were really confused. Why is he always relating stories in such a negative way about people? All you need is love. Da, 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 da.
We're in these churches, you know. We're going in these churches, and they're showing us all this stuff. Well, it wasn't this Nazi tour guide. It was a different one. And so we were touring this big, beautiful church, hundreds of years old. And over on one side, you know, there's all these Jesuses on the cross with the loincloth and the, you know, everything. It's Catholic is what it was. And so it's a Catholic church. We're in Italy, right? And so everybody's pretty much Catholic. So we're in there, and on this one little offside thing here, there was Jesus hanging there, a figure of Jesus, and it was kind of bronze, really dark. It was hanging there, and all around it were skeletons. There were these skeletons hanging over up at the top and some down on the bottom. And she made a comment about it. Said nobody could figure out what the artist was thinking here because it's all and it's pretty hideous to look at and everything. And I looked at it and I said out loud, all the people heard it.
When he was saying this, I was thinking about all the ministers out there who labor in cities that are predominantly inhabited by Catholics. Catholic believers. It was like that when we went to Pittsburgh. Every door we knocked on, it almost became funny. It was like, oh no thank you, I'm a devout Catholic. That's the way it was. And I understood that because I was brought up that way. Italian, Polish, Catholic. They didn't believe that was something you could change. Just like you couldn't change that you were Italian or Polish. That is the way it is. If you know anyone that was brought up that way, that is the way it was. When you came home saying you were born again, it's like, you can't change that. So he's clueless. He doesn't care. He just wants to say what he wants to say without a filter, because he feels like he's in another country and he's not trying to win these people to God in a church service, which he's not trying now either as he relates this, because he's telling on himself to anyone sitting there what kind of person he is. But he's too wrapped up in himself to realize it.
I said, means death. Jesus died. She said, well, I know I have my professor. My professor is really good. He's a good professor. And I asked him about it, why the artist would do this. And he told me that artists have different kinds of expression. I said, this dummy is a Catholic. I said, this dummy is a Catholic. I said, this dummy is a Catholic.
This dummy is a Catholic. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need.
She doesn't want to talk about Jesus' death.
So then talk about the resurrection. You find a way to find common ground to talk about if you actually care about your interactions with people. That's how it works. It's not about just knocking on doors and handing people a card. Like a JW. And there are the followers laughing again. I hope nervously. Like, because they know they're expected to. And not because they really think this is hilarious. What's hilarious? And he's supposedly a Christian and supposedly a man of God representing Jesus Christ.
Doesn't even make sense. That stuff is so pagan and so ridiculous. It's paganism. It was infused in the church at an early stage.
Not really sure which part he's talking about as being pagan, because a lot of people think crosses are paganistic.
I said, I wanted to tell her, no, Jesus took your place in hell. That's what this artist is trying to tell you. That he died, and usually when you die, you go to death. That's what happened. And we should be stirred at the idea that he is alive. What did he rise from? He rose from the grave. How did he rise up? Sinless, in victory, in power, and in glory.
When I was brought up Catholic, we believed in the resurrection. So I'm wondering why he didn't use that common ground to talk to someone lovingly and to maybe find an inroad. Who knows? Maybe he could have come back and said, oh, we need someone to go to wherever it was, Italy or Barcelona. I think he said Italy. There's no talk of that.
One time we were in Athens, Greece. This was a long time ago. This was back 2015 maybe. And we were in Athens, Greece, and we were stopped at this place to have an espresso. So we stopped and we ordered these espressos, and we had these little cups. I said, okay, an espresso is small, just a little cup like that. So we sat down and we began to drink, and it was bitter. It was so dark. I mean, I drink espresso quite often, and no problem. But this was particularly bitter, and I'm going to tell you why. The same reason that many of you say coffee is gross, because you've never had a good cup.
How do you know? Some people just don't like coffee. Thinks he knows everything.
You tasted somebody's old stinking instant Maxwell House and said, ew, and you wrote off coffee forever.
What does he care about whether you like coffee or not? He's projecting again. He probably is talking about maybe tasting Davis's instant coffee back years ago before he tried other kinds. Who knows? That's a guess on my part. Who cares whether people like coffee or not, unless he's got a multi-level marketing thing going with that too, like he did the Shakeology.
But there's some good stuff out there. And so we got there, and she said, my wife said, man, this is too bitter. And it was Nescafe. They're making all this espresso with instant coffee in a machine and calling it espresso.
So Kekel's going on and on about all these disparate things. He tries to bring them together at times, but really overall it was negativity about where he visited over in Europe. It's a notable absence from his storytelling, is positivity and love. It's totally missing, gone. But he goes on about the coffee because he's going to talk about sludge in the bottom of it. I don't know if he's never had like a little Cuban coffee or a little Greek coffee, and if he knows or Googled all the different ways they make it, and actually Nescafe is a popular thing over there. I'm not even going to keep playing it because it's just one gripe after another. He tried to tie in about sludge that was in the bottom of a coffee that he had, the same coffee that he's going on and on about. I don't know if he's never had a French press coffee. It's one of the reasons I don't like it. If you don't do it just right, you have to wait for all that to settle to the bottom before you can really drink it, unless you like crunchy coffee. I feel like if you're someone that you took 2 weeks off from the ministry, just took it off, when you know you've been the only one in the organization that's been able to do that. And if Davis did it as well, we didn't know about things because there was no internet to share all that, was there? So it's just Mike and Tanya just going on vacations. Have nothing to do with getting to and fro from a conference. And since they're the only ones that are able to do that, then shouldn't they be the ones making the most of those opportunities to reach souls, to get a footing in a place and say, we can bring back with us something from our heart about what we saw and experienced, and maybe someone will be willing to go. And while they're there, they didn't say anything about keeping an eye out for an open door or grieving for going in the churches and seeing. I mean, that was what hit me when I became a Christian at first, was the whole worship of Mary and going into confessional boxes. And it's grievous to your heart. So this guy they clearly weren't on a trip to look for an open door, an inroad to reach souls. Instead, he chose to gripe about tour guides and people who are idiots and stupid for not understanding things. As he sees them, he's enlightened. But he can't even love the person that's standing right next to him. If you want to listen to the whole service, you are more than welcome to. I just couldn't take it anymore. He went on near the end of the service about seeing people on the streets who looked unhappy. He was judging a whole region by those few people. And he was taking he was just looking at people. I would dare say anybody looking at him walking around, he's not walking around with his grill showing all the time. You kidding me? He doesn't even do that when he's up clapping his hands barely. But he wants all kinds of gymnastic participation from his followers. It's so crazy. But this is the note he left people on. And it doesn't matter if you kind of tie it up with some little ditty that makes you sound like you care. The bulk of what he says and what he chooses to preach about, how he treats people there, it's not loving and it's not caring. And on that note, I will just remind those who are under the ministry, if you want to call it that, of this guy, this group, that all you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. I know Phil doesn't like that Jesus' love stuff, but some people still do.